All right, today we're diving into a case that is so disturbing, so filled with horror, it almost seems impossible. But the real twist here isn't in the crime itself, it's in the final verdict. A decision that has left so many people questioning the very foundations of the Indian justice system.
So it all starts in Nithari, a village right on the outskirts of Delhi. Between 2005 and 2006, a whole series of disappearances led to an absolutely horrifying discovery. The official count? 13 confirmed victims. And here's the part that just gets you. Most of them were children.
And then there was this. A confession, made on camera, where one of the accused just calmly describes acts of cannibalism. For the public watching this, that was it. Case closed. I mean, how could it not be?
But 17 years later, this was the final outcome. Just one word. Acquitted. Free to go. The man who confessed on camera to these unimaginable acts was released. So the question we're really tackling today isn't just what happened in that house, but how on earth did the justice system arrive at this conclusion?
First off, let's take a closer look at the verdict itself. Now, this wasn't some lower court decision or a minor procedural thing. This was a stunning final judgment from the Supreme Court that freed a man accused of some of the most heinous crimes in the country's recent history.
So this verdict was handed down by a Supreme Court bench that actually included the current Chief Justice of India and the next in line. I mean, you can't get any higher up the judicial food chain. And this wasn't a quick decision either. This was the final word after a grueling 17-year legal saga.
To really understand the shockwaves this verdict sent out, we have to go back. We need to revisit the crime itself, to really grasp the sheer brutality that unfolded in that house in Nithari and that confession that seemed to seal the entire case.
This wasn't just murder. The charges included kidnapping, rape, and cannibalism. When the property was finally investigated, 17 human skulls were pulled from a nearby drain. Let that sink in for a second. In the end, charges were officially filed for 13 of those murders.
For the public, there was a very, very good reason to believe a conviction was a sure thing. It all came back to that chilling on-camera confession. It just seemed irrefutable. The kind of evidence that leaves absolutely no room for any doubt. So, if the crime was this horrific and the confession was so clear, what happened? How did a case that seems so open and shut slowly begin to unravel as it made its way through the court system for nearly 2 decades? Well, at first, the system seemed to work exactly as you'd expect. The district court handed down a conviction and a death sentence. But then, things started to get a little complicated. At the Allahabad High Court, some convictions were upheld, but the accused were actually acquitted in other related cases. And then, finally, the Supreme Court delivered the final blow, acquitting them in all of the remaining cases.
And this, right here, brings us to the most crucial point, the official reason for the acquittal. Because it wasn't about the confession, and it wasn't about a lack of horror. It was about something else entirely. The Supreme Court's entire decision hinged on one key phrase: lapses in investigation. Now, this could mean anything from forensic evidence being collected improperly to a broken chain of custody for crucial items. Basically, the police work was considered so flawed that the court felt it couldn't, in good conscience, uphold the conviction. It's a verdict based on procedure, not a declaration of innocence. And this really gets to the fundamental conflict at the heart of this case. On one side, you have the court saying, look, the chain of evidence was broken, the investigation was just too messy to support a conviction. But on the other side, you've got the question so many are asking. In a case with a direct, on-camera confession, how can procedural errors completely erase that admission of guilt?
Ultimately, what this verdict does is it shifts the blame. It moves the focus away from the confessed perpetrator and shines this huge, glaring spotlight onto the system itself. And that raises a profoundly difficult question. Who is responsible when justice fails?
The source material really argues that this isn't just one bad case. It's practically a blueprint for systemic failure. You see the pattern. Unspeakable crimes are committed. The police conduct a shoddy investigation. The courts, bound by the rules of evidence, are then forced to acquit. And in the end, who gets held accountable for this massive failure? According to the source, no one. The investigators just walk away.
So this is the question that just hangs over the entire Nithari case now. If the very people whose job it is to build a case fail so spectacularly that even a confessed killer walks free, what's the recourse?
Who answers for the victims when the system fails them not once, but twice?
And this really brings us to the philosophical heart of the issue, right? It's a principle you hear a lot in the law, but the source uses it to frame a devastating final thought. In our noble effort to protect the innocent, have we created a system where procedural loopholes allow the self-proclaimed guilty to walk free, leaving victims and their families with no justice at all?